Sean Spicer, Colonel Alan West, and more, plus my opening statement. But first, some highlights from the president tonight.
They announced that he's not going to send missiles up anymore until through the meetings. Well, think of that. You know, we were getting a lot of missiles sent. I wouldn't say Japan was thrilled, missiles flying over Japan. They're very happy with what I'm doing. And who else could do it? I mean, honestly, when you think. They're not going to send missiles up. Think of it. They're not sending missiles up. And I believe that. I believe that. I really do. I think they want to do something. I think they want to make peace. I think it's time. And I think we've shown great strength. I think that's also important. They say they want to stop the missiles. They want to denuclearize. They want to do all of these things. And all of these people are like, they can't believe it. It's unbelievable. I said to my wife, I said, you know, it's amazing. They're really nice tonight. It's really amazing. They're all saying this is an incredible achievement. This is, okay. Then I get up in the morning. Some time goes by. Right? Same people, they're saying, not that big a deal. Anybody could have done it. Obama could have done it. Obama had a chance. No. They're saying, Obama was driving you down. You take a look at those numbers before we took over. They were heading down. The economy is the best it's ever been. Your coal, by the way, folks, some of you are in the coal world. Your coal is coming back big. Your steel is coming back. We've created 3 million jobs since Election Day. Nobody thought that was possible. We've passed the largest tax cuts and reform in American history. We've created more than 300,000 new jobs alone last month. But our new slogan, when we start running in, can you believe it, 2 years from now, is going to be, keep America great, exclamation point. Keep America great.
President Trump firing up supporters in Moon Township, Pennsylvania. We'll hear much more from the president later this hour, but now my opening statement. Genius is rarely recognized at the time it occurs. Greatness most often realized not in the moment, but rather in retrospect. As President Trump waged his unique battle to get North Korea's dictator Kim Jong-un to the bargaining table, he was roundly criticized for his style, telling Kim Jong-un as he continued to launch his nuclear warheads on intercontinental ballistic missiles that Kim would be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. And Trump threatening in no uncertain terms that his nuclear button was bigger and more powerful than the dictator's. And in that back and forth, Kim threatens to send a birthday gift on Independence Day to the American bastards. The name-calling was unprecedented. Madman, rogue, gangster, frightened, barking dog, dotard, rocket man, little rocket man. The criticism, of course, by the American media was relentless. The narrative was that Trump was instigating a nuclear holocaust, that the United States was giving Kim Jong-un no out other than nuclear war. This, in spite of the fact that Kim was repeatedly launching ballistic missiles, threatening their reach to Guam, Hawaii, and the mainland. Trump, of course, in his usual fashion, was undeterred, all the while continuing to impose a slew of economic sanctions, warning that if forced theirs, as this happened, no other president could accomplish this. Not Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, not Bill Clinton, not George W. Bush, and certainly not Barack Obama. All either incapable or unwilling to confront a predictable impending disaster that Trump warned of in 1999, long before he became president. Don't believe me? Listen to the president just 2 hours ago.
You know, they're saying, oh, well, Obama could have done that. Trust me, he couldn't have done that. He wouldn't have done that. He would not have done it. And by the way, neither would Bush and neither would Clinton. And they had their shot. and all they did was nothing.
In the case of Bill Clinton, it's even worse. He gave more than $4 billion to Kim's father in exchange for North Korea's disbanding and dismantling its nuclear weapons program.
This is a good deal for the United States. North Korea will freeze and then dismantle its nuclear program. South Korea and our other allies will be better protected. The entire world will be safer as we slow the spread of nuclear weapons. The United States and international inspectors will carefully monitor North Korea to make sure it keeps its commitments.
Yeah, that worked out real well, Bill. Not only did they not keep their commitment, they built a nuclear armament to threaten our people. So much for the Bill Clinton, Neville Chamberlain appeasement approach to dictators. As far as George Bush in 2008, he did his part in appeasing Kim Jong-il by actually removing, I said removing, North Korea from the American State Department's list of state sponsors of terrorism. He really had a grasp on the issues, that one. And Barack Obama, in his inimitable fashion and with language we've all heard before, said he was going to, quote, work with all the interested partners in the international community to take appropriate steps to let North Korea know they cannot threaten other countries with impunity. Now, what does that mean? Whatever it meant, it didn't scare Kim. Now, instead of recognizing the historic moment and the genius that got a wackadoo madman to the bargaining table, the mainstream media chooses to heap criticism on Donald Trump when their own champions accomplished absolutely nothing.
In some ways, the president kind of got boxed in here. He couldn't say no to this invitation.
There is no way that President Trump can be ready by May to have a high-stakes negotiation on denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. It's just impossible. You can't wing it. Kim Jong-un is going to be fully prepared. I think that he's playing to the president's ego and the president's weaknesses.
It's not as if you have a president like Eisenhower, who was schooled in diplomacy and politics and the military, who knew these issues. This president doesn't read, and he doesn't study, and he doesn't prepare.
And, of course, the New York Times says that Donald Trump could end up being played by Kim like, quote, a gold-plated violin. But one more thing. Kim Jong-un knows full well that he comes to discuss full-blown denuclearization, full nuclear disarmament, not a freeze, not a reduction. And he also knows he is not dealing with a Barack Obama who buckles to dictators like in Iran when he caved and gave $150 billion, taxpayers' dollars, to so-called stop the development of a nuclear bomb. And get this, we're not even in a position to verify or monitor if there is nuclear disarmament or even do site inspections. And rest assured, there will be no cash sent on unmarked planes in various world currencies. Count on a new and totally different agreement with teeth with Donald Trump. It was Trump's genius in crippling economic sanctions that brought this dictator to his knees. And although the mainstream media is worried, predicting that Trump will be outsmarted and outplayed by this dictator, in truth, the only people who need to be worried are the North Koreans. Donald Trump is more than the man Kim thinks he is. He has already outsmarted him, and that can get us a peace deal that will certainly last a long, long time.
And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. Touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. I'm not.
You heard the president's speech, I assume?
I did.
All right. Well, he was in typical form. I would say rare form, but that's typical for him in front of a group of thousands, correct?
Look, I love Donald Trump when he's in front of 20,000 people talking directly to the American people. He is so good. He is so captivating. And what he did tonight was remind the American people by bypassing the mainstream media of all the accomplishments of this administration. Yeah. He still gets no credit for Judge Neil Gorsuch, for all of the justices he's put on the Supreme Court, for the historic tax cuts that he has delivered for the American people. The mainstream media don't want to talk about it, so he gets out and he talks about it, and the American people are reminded every time they open their paycheck that because of Donald Trump, they have more money.
I want you to listen to one of the things that he said about Maxine Waters.
Maxine Waters, a very low IQ individual. You ever see her? Do you ever see her? We will impeach him. We will impeach the president. But he hasn't done anything wrong. It doesn't matter. We will impeach him. She's a low IQ individual. You can't help it. She really is.
Well, you know what? I have to tell you, that was a long time coming because she started before he even took office. What do you think of his now focusing on her low IQ? Is that going to stick?
Well, it's Maxine Waters, it's Nancy Pelosi, it's Pocahontas, it's all the same people that have been attacking this president and not helping him put an agenda together which the American people want to support, which is less taxes, less regulation. Look what he's done on the regulation side. This president has done everything that he's campaigned on, that he has pledged to fulfill, including the tariffs on foreign countries that are dumping this steel and aluminum on our soil, and all they can say is, let's impeach him. There's nothing to impeach him for other than standing up for Americans.
And you know what's amazing, Corey, is the fact that, I mean, when you look at Hispanic unemployment, African-American unemployment, you look at all the jobs that are coming to this country. I mean, you would think that those people, who feel forgotten by other administrations at least would recognize that there is something good here. But I want to ask you something, Corey. In your other life, you were in law enforcement, correct?
I was, yes.
Okay. How do you feel about what's going on in California? And the president talked about this tonight, sanctuary cities. And, you know, this mayor where the Department of Justice is coming after her and California for pretty much warning illegals, not just illegals and chambermaids, but the criminal illegals that were coming for them.
Well, Judge, I'll tell you, as someone who's a first responder who went out on the job every day and unfortunately had the unfortunate duty of serving in 3 funerals for 3 officers in the state of New Hampshire who were killed in the line of duty, I can tell you this. It is unforgivable that elected officials warn people that police officers who are sworn to do their jobs are coming to do a duty that they are tasked to do, and to give criminals a heads up that they will be coming against the very nature of the individuals who are serving them every day to keep them safe is so disgusting to me. I hope the Justice Department prosecutes them to the fullest extent of the law.
Well, do you have faith that Jeff Sessions will?
Well, I think Jeff on this one is very tough. I think what he's done on MS-13 is tough. And I can tell you, I think Jeff is going to do the right thing when it comes to appointing a new special prosecutor to look at these Pfizer application abuses.
Well, okay. Well, yeah, he's been talking about it. He's thinking about it. I don't know how long it's going to take him to think about it. But it seems to me that with the Pfizer court and all the abuses that we've heard of, I mean, that is fundamental. The most secret court in the United States being played by the Clinton campaign as well as the DNC. And finally, what do you think of this meeting with Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un? You know, I kind of think that Kim wants to meet him. I really do.
Well, look, Judge, you know the president very well. He is so gracious and so magnanimous in private, but he's the greatest negotiator our country's ever seen. And I can tell you this, the people of South Korea, the people of Hawaii, the people of Guam, they can sleep better at night because Donald Trump has pledged to take a meeting, which means no nuclear testing will continue. And if that isn't success, then I don't know what is. He should be up for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, let's hope so. Corey Lewandowski, it's so good to see you, Corey. Take care.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, and Colonel Alan West is still on deck tonight to weigh in on the president's speech. Plus, what does President Trump's original White House press secretary think about North Korean summit and tonight's rally?
Her weakness. No, I know her weakness. I know her. You know, I know her very well. I was on her last show, or one of the last, I guess the last week. She had Donald Trump and Donald Trump's family. My, we've come down a long way, haven't we? I'm now president, and probably, you know, but think of it. I know her weakness. Wouldn't we love to run against Oprah? I would love it. I would love it. That would be a painful experience for her.
President Trump not holding back tonight on any topic, giving a rip-roaring speech at a rally in Pennsylvania. Here with reaction, former White House press secretary Sean Spicer joins me live. All right, Sean, what do you think of the Oprah comment?
He's in his element tonight. And I think that's what's important. It's the same kind of momentum and energy that won him the election. He did very well in that portion of Pennsylvania, the 18th Congressional District, where Rick Saccone is facing off next week on Tuesday. And by firing up those people and reminding him not only what's at stake, but what he's done and what he's going to do, he provided the energy tonight that's going to put Rick over the top, I think, come Tuesday.
Yeah, well, they say it's a tight race now, correct?
Yeah. I think it is going to be a tight race. It's all going to be about turnout. And that's why it's so important that the president was there, because that base of his is so solid that when he goes out and says, I need this guy there to continue to do all of the things that I'm doing, and he's doing a ton. From the regulatory stuff to the economy. He mentioned South Korea, the stuff he's doing on steel and tariffs. It's so important to that area of Pennsylvania in particular. And it's important that they understand what a partner he needs in the Congress from Pennsylvania. So him getting out there, getting back into his element, reminding the crowd what's at stake, why he needs Rick's vote in Congress is crucial heading into these final hours.
Well, and you know what's interesting, Sean, is, and you were on the campaign trail with him, obviously. I mean, he can still draw that crowd. I mean, he hangs on to them. You know that he could get through that speech in 30 minutes, but he milks it. He makes sure that they get their money's worth. And obviously there's no money, but that they wait in line for hours, and he's not going to let them leave disappointed. But there's another sound I want you to listen to, imagining if he didn't win. Let's take a listen.
Don't win the election, their ratings are going to go so far down, they're going to be out of business, every one of them. Can you imagine? Can you imagine covering Bernie or Pocahontas? Pocahontas, how about that? Pocahontas. Can you imagine these guys? Some of them are actually smiling, but some of them just can't stand it, honestly. Some of them, they can't take it. Can you imagine having to cover Elizabeth Warren for 4 years?
He's not afraid of anybody, but go ahead, Sean. What's your take on that?
Well, I think there's a few things there. I mean, he's absolutely right when it comes to the ratings. Everybody admits it. It was funny. There was an interview with some of the late night show hosts the other day, and they said, you know, our monologues and our jokes used to always be about the news. But Donald Trump is the news now. He's the first, second, third, fourth segment on every show. So part of the reason that the late night shows are all about Donald Trump is because the news is all about Donald Trump. The thing that I think is fascinating is that they focus more about process and chaos and less about the achievements. You think about Friday, Judge, 313 jobs. The expectation was supposed to be for 200,000.
Oh, last
313.
Month, right.
That's 113,000 more Americans that have a job, largely because of the tax cuts and the regulations that this president's done. And we're only 14 months in.
Yeah.
At some point, the press is going to have a hard time making excuses for not covering the accomplishments of the president.
And you know, Sean, I think it was in the New York Times today that I was reading, and it almost begrudgingly said, and it looks like it's going to continue going higher, you know, that there'll be more jobs. It was like they were upset about it. But I want to ask you something. You know, they talk about chaos in the White House, right? You're in the West Wing. And they say it's a disaster. Nobody knows what's going on, that this one left and that one left. What's it like when Donald Trump is in the West Wing? Is there any question about who's in charge and what the agenda is?
No. Not to mention that, look, the thing that I find fascinating about this whole discussion is that as a voter and as an American, here's what I care about, is results. I care about whether more Americans are working, whether or not they're getting higher wages, whether or not our borders are safe, the flow of illegal immigration is down, whether or not ISIS is on the run, whether or not businesses and manufacturing is coming back and businesses are thriving. All of those metrics are moving in the right direction. I will tell you that I will take chaos and whatever else they throw our way if we continue to have results. Because at the end of the day, you don't want boring and no results. What this president's giving us is, yeah, he's mixing it up. He's not satisfied with the status quo. But the bigger point, Jeanine, and this gets largely missed, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do, and he's behaving exactly how he has before. He's a disruptor who likes to bring people in, fight it out, get the best idea, and charge forward. He's doing everything he said said he was going to do
All right,
in getting
John
results.
Spicer, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And
Thanks.
the outrageous statements of the week are still ahead, and we've got some real beauties tonight. And next, it's a star-studded panel ready to do battle. Katrina Pearson and Richard Fowler ready to weigh in on the Trump speech. Justice rolls on in a moment.
President Moon of South Korea said without Donald Trump, the Olympics would have been a total failure. It's true. True. You know? Might as well say it. Nobody else is going to say it, right? Might as well say it. You know, a little hard to sell tickets when you think you're going to be nuked.
There he was, wrapping up his big speech a short time ago outside of Pittsburgh, and what a speech it was. My political panel's here and ready to react to it, so let's get right to it. Former Trump campaign spokesperson Katrina Pearson and Democratic strategist, Fox News contributor Richard Fowler. All right, so Katrina, he says if it weren't for him, they all would have been nuked. What's your take on that?
You know, Judge, this is Donald Trump in his element. He loves being around his supporters. He is out there with the people supporting a candidate that he believes is going to help him pass his agenda. He's having a lot of fun. I miss candidate Trump, and I think tonight was a really great night for the president.
All right, Richard, your take on that one?
Well, I think the problem the president has, and we saw that in this rally today, is he doesn't have a clear focus on what his agenda is. He went to Pittsburgh, or the suburbs of Pittsburgh, to campaign for somebody who is going to, in a tough special election. And I don't think he made that candidate chances any better because he didn't talk about the candidate at all.
I think
well,
he did. Go ahead,
he did talk
Katrina.
about the candidate. He even brought the candidate on stage and gave him the microphone. He talked about all of the policies that he's been pushing at the national level to get a partner in there that's going to help him from Pennsylvania.
He also managed to insult Maxine Waters. He managed to go after Oprah Winfrey.
Stick with what you just said, Richard.
He managed to go after Chuck Todd.
I don't know so much that it's insulting.
None of that had anything to do with the Pittsburgh suburbs congressional race.
But see, that's where the left and the media gets Donald Trump confused, Richard. You keep saying that he insults individuals when he's really just sticking up for himself. I know you guys aren't used to Republicans fighting back, but that's just something that you're going to have to deal with.
Wait a minute. First of all, I am a very practical progressive. I think the president's right on steel. I think the president's also right to sit down with North Korea. I think, Judge Jeanine, we weren't outnumbered when I said a couple months ago he should have sat down with North Korea, and I'm happy the president's doing it. So I will clap for the president when it's time.
North Korea is sitting down with him. They asked for
Either way, they're sitting down and they're having a conversation.
Sit down with Obama or any of the others.
Listen, but this North Korea issue is not a time where we should sit here and say who's bigger, who has the bigger muscles. The reason why we need to talk to North Korea is because this is the most probable scenario of nuclear war on the globe. So if we choose not to deal with them, if they launch a nuclear weapon, there's no going back from that. The whole world is in peril. And so I don't care who sits down with who. I'm happy the president's having the conversation.
Well, the only reason that they are sitting down is because there was this argument about who's got a bigger nuclear button, and the president clearly won that argument. But what's really important here is to talk about what's happening next. This is something that we have not seen, something the president is not getting credit for, because we have the same old suits and geniuses out there that got us into this mess, constantly criticizing the president.
All right.
Let's give him a chance.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. There is a great deal of discussion of Rick Saccone. So, Richard Fowler, you're totally wrong on that one. But I want you both to listen to what the president says in another sound.
You know how easy, remember I used to say how easy it is to be presidential? But you'd all be out of here right now. You'd be so bored. Because I could stand out, right? I could stand out. I'm very presidential.
Katrina?
You know, if you listen closely, Jeanine, you will hear someone yell, "You're one of us." This is America's president. This is an individual that speaks the way that everyone else does when no one else is listening, and American loves that.
I'm not sure how you could be the American president when you have the lowest approval rating of all American presidents in recent history.
Well, you're the American president when you're passing America's policies.
Well,
the one that actually won the presidential campaign.
But he won the only... Only 33% of Americans approve of him. And this, mind you, Katrina, mind you, the reason why he's in Pittsburgh is because this is a seat that Donald Trump picked up by 20 points. just 16 months ago. Now it is neck and neck because of the president's rhetoric and because he's not acting presidential.
It's not because of the president's rhetoric. If there's any candidate struggling out there, Richard, because they're not Donald Trump. It's just that simple. These candidates have to step up their game. It is a special election. He wants to get someone out there to help him. And there is only one poll that counted. It was last November. The people have spoken. America's president is there. And don't let the special elections fool you. Just ask Republicans in 2006 and Democrats in 2010.
That's why Republicans are that's why Republicans in Congress are retiring like it's going out of style. There's more committee chairs who are Republicans who have retired.
So now you know why
because they don't want to run in this midterm election with Donald Trump.
Richard, stop. Richard, would you deny that the economy is in much better shape since Donald Trump's been there?
I don't think this election has anything to do with the economy, but I'll give the president his marks on the economy. Like I said, I will praise the president who needs to be praised, but that does not take away from the fact that overall, across the board, he's unpopular with most Americans.
And he was unpopular when he won the Electoral College, and that's why we are having tax cuts.
But I'm glad you admit that he's unpopular.
And we are absolutely pushing an America
First agenda. I'm glad you admitted that he's unpopular. We are making progress, Katrina.
Those are the polls. The polls are the polls.
Yeah, you just admitted that he's unpopular.
The polls are always wrong. We saw that on Election Day. On Election Day, all of Hillary Clinton supporters were crying because she was up by 10 and lost handedly. So we don't go by polls.
Yeah, but you just admitted that he's unpopular. You're his former campaign spokesperson.
Of course he's unpopular in the polls. Look at the polls.
I think you said we know he's unpopular, but he won the Electoral College.
Doing the polls. Look at the methodology.
Sarcasm when you hear it, Richard. Don't you understand that?
They don't understand
sarcasm? That. All right, let me final.
I didn't hear the sarcasm there at all.
Would you admit, though, Richard, that in spite of whether he acts presidential or not, this man can draw crowds. This man has done more in 1 year than most presidents, especially in terms of legislation and in terms of the economy. It is totally different now.
I think you have to parse that question. Yes, he draws crowds. He's a reality show star. Of course he's going to draw crowds. Right? And he's entertaining. There's no question that he's entertaining. And that's why he's a ratings hike for every news channel, so they cover him wall to wall. But with that being said, and I'll give him marks on the economy, but with that being said, you cannot have the world's leading economy, the world's leader, have a White House in utter and total chaos, which is where we are right now.
Do
we even have a comms director in the White House right now? I didn't think so.
Donald Trump is the communications director of the White House. But what I will say is during the campaign, Richard, Beyonce and Jay-Z couldn't fill a stadium for Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump filled stadiums all over this country.
That's an absolute red herring.
The president is popular. The people love him. We saw it tonight. We're going to continue to see that in the future.
Richard Fowler.
That's an absolute red herring.
And stand at attention. There's a colonel on deck. Colonel Allen West has a lot to say about the Trump speech, so don't go away. Welcome back to Justice on this busy night of news. My next guest knows a thing or two about politics, war, and diplomacy. He's a retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel and a former member of the U.S. House of Representatives. Fox News contributor Colonel Allen West joins me now. All right, good evening, Colonel. Thanks for being with us tonight. I assume you heard the president's speech?
Yes, I've heard many of the different points that came out from it. And I think, once again, if we're going to sit down and try to say that President Trump is a atypical type of president that's going to go out and give, like you said, a very dry type of campaign speech, that's not his mantra, and that's not the type of platform that he's going to try to use. But no one can take away from him that he has been able to do something in less than...
Your military background, I mean, you see, I guess, or have a sense of this, more than most of how serious this is with a guy who certainly appeared to have the capability of hitting a lot of America with his nuclear warheads on the ICBMs.
Well, absolutely. I was stationed there in South Korea along the DMZ in the 2nd Infantry Division back in 1995. And at the time, that was his father that we were dealing with. And, of course, we continued on with the concessions to give him the food aid and monetary aid any time he rattled sabers. But for the first time, we've had a president that pushed back. And we can argue about the type of rhetoric that he's used or what have you, but sometimes a bully needs to know that you'll stand up to him and you're willing to throw a punch. The most important thing is that Kim Jong-un knows that he he cannot take the first offensive action because China has already said that they will not stand for that. So we do have a sense of a high ground and that we can continue to implement these sanctions which put a stranglehold on him, and I think that's what has brought him to the table.
You know, it's interesting, Colonel, you mentioned China. I think it was President Xi who said that he was going to be president for life, and President Trump made a comment joking about, you know, can you imagine, president for life? And everybody comes out and they dump on him as though he's serious about it. Why don't you take a listen?
I was joking, and I said, president for life, that sounds good. Maybe we're going to have to try it. Maybe we're going to... President for life. But I'm joking. And they knew everybody in the room was laughing. Everybody's having a great time. I'm joking about being president for life. A couple of them went back. Donald Trump, with his dictatorial attitude, now wants to be president for life. You know, straight. Fake news.
He doesn't get a break.
No, I tell you, you know, anything that President Trump does is going to be looked at with a very particular eye, a very mean and sarcastic view from the liberal progressive media, to include some people saying that even if he sits down at a peace table, it still could end up at war. But this past week, we just had a woman by the name of Elizabeth Bruenig wrote a commentary in the Washington Post about why America should try socialism. Well, we just finished trying it for the past 8 years. And Ms. Bruenig was not joking, but you would hope that she would have been.
Well, I think it certainly is a commentary on where the Democratic Party is going. But, you know, the president made it very clear that 2020 is in his sights. You know, it's not make America great again. It's going to be keep America great, exclamation point. But what do you think is going to happen? I mean, you were in Congress 2018. You know, it's the middle of the first term of a president. Not a good year generally.
Well, I think what you saw happen with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, both of them delved into a very unpopular policy, and that was health care. And that is why they saw massive losses. But right now, when you listen to the Democrats, they are the party that stands for illegal immigration in sanctuary cities. That's not a winning issue. Bernie Sanders is out there talking about repealing the tax cut law. That is definitely not a winning issue if you want to take away the crumbs that you've just given to people. And if you look at restoring our military, you look at having a stronger foreign policy, why would we want to turn it over to a party that had us in a position of weakness? So I don't think they have a platform other than we hate Donald Trump and we want to impeach him.
Well, it's interesting because tonight he did renew a call to Congress to stop funding sanctuary cities, chain migration, and he hit the Dems tonight for obstructionism. You know, there is now the Department of Justice going after the mayor in California.
No, he's absolutely right. And, of course, the president's going to be traveling out to California. Look, California is the petri dish for all of the progressive socialist policies that you want to see exported all across the United States of America. And, you know, me being here in Dallas, Texas, they have this mantra called Turn Texas Blue. Why would you want to turn Texas into anything except the economic successful engine that it is? Why would you want to have it look like California? Why would you compare the capital of Texas, Austin, Texas, to San Francisco? That's not a winning proposition.
All right. Colonel Allen West, always good to have you on Justice. Thanks for being with us tonight.
My pleasure, Justice. Thank you.
All right. She's back. Kathy Griffin is desperately trying to be semi-relevant again. So I helped her out by putting her on this week's list of the most outrageous things I heard.
I deserve it. So I guess fire and fury worked.
A dramatic statement that they're talking about. Kim Jong-un is actually talking about total denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. What do you make of that suggestion?
This is actually a moment that very few of us thought we'd ever see.
The president has agreed that he will meet with Kim Jong-un, and it's difficult to overstate the historic nature of this.
John, comb your hair. But that's what normal people call good news. But what about Morning Beaker?